Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, whatever the case may be for you. My name is Eric Chappell, Community Evangelist for InfraWorks 360. With me today is Dave Tyner, Premium Support Specialist, and Dave is going to be talking to you about animating InfraWorks 360 model components. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk to you a little bit about our webcast series and our community. If you're new joining us for the series, we do this twice a month. We've been doing it since about April, and it's usually the first and third Wednesday of the month, so watch for the postings for what's coming up next. And our goals with this series are to pass along information about InfraWorks 360, the features, what's going on with it, what's coming, how our product team, what their take is on the different features that it has, that sort of thing. It's also a place to give you a chance to ask questions and provide feedback. And just generally speaking, we want to bring you, the InfraWorks 360 users, closer to the folks who make the software. Now, we have a special guest today. He's not a member of the product team. He's actually a member of our Elite Enterprise Priority Support team. But I think you're going to find what he's going to share with you extremely useful and something that's been under a lot of demand since the product first came out. I'll tell you what we're going to do next time, which will be Wednesday, November 18th. Mr. Nick Zeben will be joining us and giving us a rundown on component roads. So this is actually a preview feature, but a very exciting set of capabilities that the product has. You're not going to want to miss this. Again, 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, November 18th. Be watching all of the different sources listed there in the bullet list as to where to find a registration link and more information about the webcast when it's posted. And we'll probably be posting that information early next week. A quick poll. This is one that we do each time we have a webcast, and we've been tracking the results. And we want to get an idea of what your InfraWorks 360 usage level is. So please provide your answer and let us know where you're at in your usage level of InfraWorks 360. And you can see the choices range from not even having it installed, so maybe you're here just because you're curious about the product, right on down to you use it all the time and you're here to learn more skills about how to use it. And as you're going to see in today's presentation, we're going to delve into another Autodesk product a bit, and that's 3ds Max. And I do want to point out what you're about to see does not require any previous 3ds Max experience. So if you're getting a little nervous like this is going to be over your head, don't worry about it. I'm right there with you. I am not a 3ds Max user, so I'm going to learn a ton here today as well. Really looking forward to it. So the majority of you have voted, and it looks like we're in that I regularly use it on some projects range. That's the winning choice, so that's great to hear. It's nice to know that you're all using it to that extent. So I'm going to close that poll, and we'll move on. I want to tell you guys about our community, and the community really isn't one place or one location. It's a whole assortment of places. We've got our forum, our idea station, InfraTips, which has become extremely popular, where you find these quick tips on how to do certain things in InfraWorks 360, kind of productivity enhancement tips. A lot of them are provided by our product team. Social Hub, videos, webcast recordings. In fact, you'll find the recording of this webcast posted on the Community Center, which is that top URL that you see, autodesk.com/InfraWorks360community. If you go to that URL, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see where to access the past webcast recordings. So not only today's webcast, but all of them that we've done back through April, they're all available for you to watch, and there's some really, really good ones in there. So please visit our various assortment of community resources, and don't just watch, be active, engage, make comments, help out other users. InfraWorks 360 is a new product, so there are a lot of early adopters who are looking for help and guidance from other folks who have maybe been where they've been last week or last month, and you all can be a great help to them. I mentioned our InfraTips page. Like I said, this has become a very popular source of traffic and information for our users, so please check it out. Easy way to find it, just Google the word infra tips and it'll take you right to it. It'll be the first listing on the search results. I don't believe that we have any preview features that we're going to discuss in this presentation, but just in case we do, I always go over this disclaimer. Anything we call out as a preview feature or even something that's listed on labs, we want everyone to understand that that's not a guarantee or a promise that that feature is going to actually exist in a fully supported form in the future. So in other words, don't base purchasing decisions on any material that is referred to as a preview feature. With that out of the way, I want to talk to you too about asking questions. As with any presentation, any talk, anything you go to, it's always better if there are questions. So please don't hesitate. You've got the questions window that you can type into. Unfortunately, with the size of our group, we can't open the phone lines to ask questions via audio. There's a good chance I won't be able to answer your questions directly. Myself and Chakri are going to be standing by, kind of watching as questions come in. But I will break in and interrupt Dave at times and throw out some questions that I think might be relevant to what he happens to be talking about at the moment. And then at the end, we'll also hopefully have some time to answer a few of the questions that you guys throw in there. So please do that. Please liven up our presentation by asking questions, and we'll do our best to get you answers. So with that, I'm going to turn over the floor to Dave Tyner. Dave, you can go ahead and take it away, share your screen, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Dave Tyner, and I should probably share my screen. There we go. So I am a 3ds Max guy and premium support specialist here at Autodesk, and today we're going to be going through and animating some basic, so today's the basic version. What we hope to do is create a series of webcasts about this and progressively increase the level of difficulty per cast. But this time we're just going to be going through and doing the easy version. So hopefully there's some questions at the end. I know one thing about 3ds Max is it can be very complicated. I totally get it. It's a complicated interface. There's a million zillion buttons, all that have a million zillion sub-buttons, but really we're just going to be focusing on 12 or 13 of those buttons today and going through and taking it nice and easy. If you're an advanced user of 3ds Max, we're going to be going through some, like I said, some low-level stuff, but there's always little tidbits in there that you can pick up, and if there's one thing I've learned about 3D Max, it's that the more I know, the more I don't know. There's just always something to learn, so stick around and it'll be good. All right, so we're going to be using 3D Studio Max 2016 and InfraWorks 360 16.3 in this presentation. And as I said, hopefully we can turn this into a series where we progressively increase the level of difficulty. So today we're going to be talking about the basics. We're going to be going through 3ds Max. We're going to import a model, dissect it, and then adjust some things, clean it up a bit, and then do some animation. So we're not going to jump straight into the animation because there are some preliminary steps we need to do first. And then next time it'll be less easy but not hard, and then third time it'll be not hard but not as easy as one or two. All right. Okay, so first thing when you go through, you choose your model, right? There's lots of sources for the models. Two very popular ones are TurboSquid and Trimble, Model Warehouse. TurboSquid, well, most of the good models are not free, like they are in Trimble, but the benefit of paying for the model is that oftentimes the model was actually created in 3D Studio Max, so you're getting native 3D Studio Max geometry, and it's a far easier to work with, far less cleanup than Trimble. Trimble, it's free, and that's what keeps most of us coming back, but I wouldn't say that the models are so low quality, but more that because they were modeled in another software, 3D Studio Max has to interpret that geometry, and that can cause for some inconsistencies and weird stuff that happens. And we're going to cover that a little bit more. I also have a model from InfraWorks that I imported from InfraWorks. It's the railroad gate, and we're going to go through and separate that and animate that, as well as a Trimble model, just so you can see the difference between working between the two. All right, so today's model are going to be the Trimble railroad crossing model and then the InfraWorks model. So there are lots of models available on Trimble, lots of these railroad crossings. I can send out the link, but feel free to just pick one and go to work on it. All the concepts are going to be the same. All right, so the first thing we want to do in 3D Max is we want to get the scene ready for the geometry. So we're going to set our units and make sure our scaling is right. We're going to set up the animation length, and then we're going to set our renderer up so that the materials come in like they're supposed to. All right, so I'm going to hop over here to 3D Max. Yes, perhaps I should have said. So this is the scene that I'm trying to that we're going to create over the course of this series. We have these railroad crossings here. If I just pan in a little bit. I'm going to play this. It might be jittery for you. I apologize, but I'll just play it and we'll kind of see what happens. So the crossing arms come down, and the train is coming, but some cars come up, they stop. The maybe slightly too large of a scale train goes by. And then, as if by magic, the gates will go up and the cars will drive. And we'll handle the little bump that they just clipped through right now. So that's what we're hoping to achieve here over the coming webinars. All right, so I'm going to reset the scene. Sure, I'll save it. And yes, I really do want to do that. And this is interesting. When we reset the scene, it's supposed to do this. You know what? Apologize here. I'm going to restart 3D Max. Just so we get a fresh scene here. And good. All right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up our units. So we're going to go up here to Customize. We're going to say Unit Setup. And there's two types of units in Max. There's the display unit, and then there's the system unit. The system unit is the important one. That's the one where when you import geometry, and let's say that it was created in Imperial, it's going to convert that to meters when it brings it in. For the purposes of InfraWorks animation and interoperability between 3D Max and InfraWorks, I highly suggest you go to Imperial Feet. That's not so critical for this episode, but for coming episodes it will be important. At least that's what we're finding. So I'm going to change that. And so then our unit setup can be whatever we want. It's just going to display your preference of the system unit, if that makes sense. So that can be whatever we want, but I'm going to go ahead and keep it at feet here. And then we're going to go ahead and do the next thing, which is talk about the animation goal. So for this animation, we're just going to do this gate. So we want the gate in the starting position. We want the gate to take 5 seconds to close, stay closed for, make that 10 seconds, not 20. And then it's going to open for 5 seconds. So that's basically the 3 things we want to do here. So for that, we're going to have to adjust the animation length of the scene. So I'll just Alt-Tab back. And so you see down here we have these controls, play, rewind, all that stuff. If you just right-click on Play Animation, it's going to give you this time configuration. So by default, 3D Max frames per second are 30, and I'm going to set that to 24, which is film. Of course, when you toggle that radio button on, it doesn't change the FPS display. It's been that way forever, but if I were to go there again, it would be 24. So film is 24. You can also set custom 24. And the animation start and end time. So if I pop back to here, so we want 480 frames because that's going to be 20 seconds at 24 frames per second. So 5 to come down, we wait 10, 5 to go up, that's 20, 24, math. So I'm just going to set this to be 480, and don't worry about that rescale time. You won't need to click that ever, so click OK. All right, so now we're good, and we have 480 frames as displayed down here in the timeline. Our units are set up. Now the only thing that's left to do is we need to set up our render, okay, because if you don't set this up, then when you import this model, it's going to import the wrong type of material, and when you try to export that into InfraWorks, InfraWorks is going to say, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't know what this material is, and Mr. No here said he didn't change, and he had to manually convert the materials, and he was noticeably angry. So, excuse me 1 second. All right, talking makes you thirsty. All right, so let's go ahead and set that up. So we have this render setup dialog here. Let's slide that over. So this is by default, Mental Ray. And Mental Ray is awesome, but it's not awesome for InfraWorks. So we're going to just switch that render out for the default scanline render. And now when we import the objects from Trimble, they're going to come in with the standard material that InfraWorks knows and likes. All right, so now we import the model. 3ds Max supports lots of different file formats. Today we're just going to be looking at SKP and maybe FBX if we have time, but there's a whole bunch more, and feel free to check those out. All right, so here is my word of warning about Trimble. I like it, don't get me wrong, but the models in Trimble don't import cleanly into Max. File sizes can be bloated, and that's mainly due to poor material and geometry translation between SketchUp and Max, and you can find yourself spending quite a bit of time cleaning it up. Despite all this and all the warnings here, I am going to show you how to do it anyway because, let's face it, it's free, and we're all going to go there and grab models, and it's not going to happen this time, or that model is just too perfect. I'm going to bring it in. I'm sure I can fix it. So, but I'm going to show you how to do it because I think everyone's going to do it anyway, and you should know what to expect when you do it. So, but just something to consider. All right, so importing the model, file import, and then we're going to set some options here. All right, so in Max, the file button, like most of our products, says Max, not file. We're just going to come down here and say import, and I'll switch over to the actual file. So it's this this file, this SketchUp file, and I'm going to include this in the data set. All right, so when you do this for the first time, you're probably going to have cameras and daylight systems selected. You want to deselect those. Basically, we just want all the geometry from SketchUp and none of the extra stuff. Even though some extra stuff is going to come in, we're going to delete it next. We want to delete as little as possible, so go ahead and deselect those guys, and there it is. When you bring it in, it's going to have these bounding boxes, these white bounding boxes. Just press J on the keyboard and that'll get rid of those. All right, so that's what it looks like. So now we're going to tidy it up. And Ashley says, having to clean up the mess is necessarily lame. Yes, Ashley. Awesome. All right. So now back in the model. We're going to start by removing some clutter. And this is the clutter that's brought in by the SketchUp file. Splines, cameras, lights, and helpers. Fortunately, with this file, there isn't so much, but what we want to do is just come up here to select by name and click that. And if we just select this white piece of paper looking thing, it's going to clear the filters, and now we have nothing because we have no filters set. And I want to see splines, lights, cameras, and helpers. There's only one spline, so we're going to double click on that to select it. And if I come up here and press select and move, and hold Alt, middle mouse button, and orbit around, you will see that all this extra stuff came in. All these presents came in from the SketchUp file. We don't want those at all, so we're just going to delete them. And splines can really weigh your scene down. InfraWorks is not going to recognize them when you export, but for the max scene, depending on how much you have going on, they can really weigh it down. So you really want to make sure that you get rid of the imported ones, not necessarily because you might have some splines that are useful in that scene that you want, that you put there, and you don't want to delete those. So just make sure you just get rid of all the imported ones. All right, and then converting materials, if you don't set your renderer, you can drag and drop this script into your scene, and the script was provided to me by Jack Stroulingarm. Thank you, sir. And so that will convert them for you, but you got to do all this stuff, and it's so much easier just to set the renderer and do it. But of course, I'll include this script in the data set as well. All right, so now we want to clean the geometry. So we want to verify the scale, and we want to reset the transform. And resetting the transform can be a confusing concept, just because it's kind of weird. So we're going to look at that and what that means, and then we're just going to convert this thing back to a mesh. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to press F to go to the front view, and then Z to zoom to my selection. And we're going to come over here. So we have all these panels. We have the create, modify, hierarchy, motion, and we're just worried about this utilities right now. So we have the utilities panel. We're going to come down here to measure, and we can see that this thing is 25 feet tall, which looks about right, but the pole portion maybe looks a little tall to me, maybe not. But that's just one of the things you get from Trimble, is that, okay, whoever made this was their idea of what this looked like. So what we want to do now, though, is we want to reset the transform. And resetting the transform is, okay, I understand this object now. I'm going to interpret it the way I'm going to interpret it. And from there, we're going to have to do the cleanup. But at least when we're cleaning up in a way that 3ds Max understands. You don't necessarily have to do this every time, but it's good practice to do it every time on an imported model. You just have to trust me on that, because you don't want to not do it, get way down the road and then understand, oh, I should have reset the transform. So I click that reset selected, and voila, nothing seemed to have happened. So now, but if I come over here to the modify panel, I have the mesh, and now it has this transform modifier applied to it. And all I need to do is you can either right-click on here, say collapse all, yes, or you could right-click on the object, convert to an editable mesh, would also do it. All right, so that was easy. And then one thing here that's not in the presentation that I just like to do because it's just best practice to do it is to move this pivot point, the origin point of the object, down to 0. And the way we do that is right here on all of our panels we have this hierarchy panel. So click on that, click on Effect Pivot Only, and now with that selected I can move this pivot anywhere I want to, and I just want to move that down to 0, so say 0, and make sure you toggle that back off because you'll find yourself forgetting to do that, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going to move this. Oh, hey, what's going on? Thing's broken. It's not broken. You just forgot to toggle that off. It happens a million times. All right. So now we just want to move this to 0. So we just select in there, say 0, 0, and 0. And now we're at 0 at the origin, and we can go to work on separating this out into pieces so that we can animate just this arm. But first we have to separate the arm from the rest of it. All right, so here we are. So we're going to go back into the modify, select by element, and then start cutting this thing up. All right, so one thing, and I'm sorry if you hear my mouse clacking around. So one thing I want to show you is if I press 7 on the keyboard, it's going to show me these viewport statistics, and this tiny little model, it's got a ton of polys and a ton of vertices. One way you can sort of minimize that is if you come over here to the modify panel, and we have our mesh, you click this modifier list down arrow, then all the way at the bottom here there is a vertex weld modifier, and by default it's set for 0.1 feet. I'm going to set for 0.0, 0.1, and you're going to see that polys are less now than they were, and if I were to sort of bump that out to 0.01 or more. Perfect. Which makes complete sense. All right. So what's happening? It's not recognizing it? All right, so we'll go 0.1. So what can happen if I press P and Z? It's going to just weld vertices that are in proximity of 0.1 feet to each other. And that's going to reduce your count. If you're up close on this and detail is important, then you're going to want to maybe not do that. Maybe keep that a little bit more detailed because it starts getting a little bit funky. So let's go ahead and I'm going to remove that, and we're just going to go with the full meal deal here. All right. So now back to the front view, and I'm going to select it. I'm already on the modify panel, and we have these. So this is the object, and then we have the sub-objects, which are vertices, edges, faces, polygons, and elements. And these are set up sort of hierarchically, right? So vertices make up edges, edges make up faces, faces make up polygons, polygons make up elements. So we want just to grab the element, and then if I hold the middle mouse button, that lets me pan around and zoom in. I want to start selecting just the gate. So I'm going to draw a window and get that selected, and then I'll come up here and hold Control and select that, And this is deceiving because this red thing, but I got that. And then up here, we got all those. Now, if I press P and Z, it's going to put me in perspective mode, and I can just scroll in and try to get it so that I can see that, hold control, grab it, swing around, hold control, grab that. And then I can always, while I'm in sub-object mode, I can move those sub-objects and see if I'm leaving anything behind, and it looks like we're out. Thought I had it. Alright, so we're just going to zoom around here, hold control, grab those guys, hold control, grab them. Oh, and that. And probably that. Alright, awesome. So that looks like about all of it that I need. Yes. Oh, no. That. Let's move on there. Okay, it's not a deal breaker. Alright, so now that I have everything I need selected, I'm going to click this detach button, and I can detach, just don't worry about these. I'm going to detach this as the gate arm. Awesome. Alright, so now I have two separate objects, and if I go to my front view again, FZ, then all I need to do is I have to adjust the pivot point here because obviously this is not how we want this thing to rotate. So we need to move the pivot point up to its pivot spot, the point at which it will be pivoting, and then do the animation from there. So I'll make sure I'm not jumping ahead of my slides. Yes, so here we go. Adjusting the pivot point, hierarchy panel, pivot point. We've been through this, so I'm just going to do that again, and just make sure that you toggle it off once after you toggle it on. So let's come up here, hierarchy panel, effect pivot only. I'm going to go into select and move, which you can also get to by just pressing W as the default. And if I press F4, it's going to show me my edge faces in the viewport, which is handy. And I'm just going to grab this guy and bring him up here and really just try to center it up. Eyeballing it, probably okay. That looks pretty close. And then select it off. And now it works as expected. So now we're all set, and we can start animating this thing. Like that. Yes. All right, good. Yes, this is what we're here. This is the show. All right, so these are. Excuse me, I'll take a drink of water real fast. So these are the 5 simple steps you need to perform to get this arm rotating properly. So let's look at number 1, select and rotate. 2, make sure your angle snaps are toggled yes. We're going to slide it over 120 frames. Make sure we're in animation mode. Excuse me, is what that is. And then we're going to rotate the arm. So number 1, we're in rotate. Angle snaps on. I could slide this out to 120. If you have a lot of frames, this gets kind of tricky, but you can just come over here to this box and just say 120. It'll move it. I want to make sure I am in animation mode, and that's it. So real quick on the angle snap, if you right click on it, you'll see here is your increments, 5-degree angles. And now we're just going to rotate it down. It's going to snap, which is handy, and we want it to be 90. You can see it down here in the timeline. You can actually window in the keyframe. So it created a keyframe at the beginning, frame 0, which is its initial state, and then at 120 here when it comes down. So remember, we want it to stay down for 10 seconds, and at 24 frames per second, that's 240 frames. Of course, 240 plus 120 is going to be 360. So we're just going to type that in right there. And we're going to press this key. And set keys, when we press it, is going to set a key at this time for position, rotation, and scale, I believe, for that object. So that's going to establish our wait time. And then if we just run it all the way out to the end, do that. And we'll toggle off auto key, and we'll just watch this amazing, I mean, it's practically Avatar. Almost. Definitely the beginning. So now we're waiting for 10 seconds, and up it goes. All right, so another way that you can do this is, I'm just going to delete these last two keyframes here, and so we just have this now, and it comes down and just stays there. So what's pretty handy is that I can come in here and just select this keyframe, and I can hold shift. It's going to make a copy, and then I can just drag that copy out to 360, and that's good. And then again, on my initial state, I'm just going to drag that out to 480, and it's going to accomplish the same thing. So you don't have to worry about all the rotation. You just grab the initial and the second frame and just offset those. All right, so now the object is animated, and I believe we are ready for export. So let's just make sure. Yes, and we do that. And then it's like that. And that is what happens. Sweet. All right, so now we're going to export the animation from Max. All right, again, file, export this time instead of import. So a couple things to note, that if we file export, it's going to export everything in the scene. Our object, any other objects that happen to be in there, geometry only, for DAE format. So, and if I select it, if I have other animated objects in the scene and I just want that, I can file, export, selected, and that way it'll just export the selected objects. Since I don't have any other objects in here, I'm just going to say file, export. And I want to change this to the DAE format. It's the only animated format InfraWorks gets. And so I will just say, so nothing's up my sleeve here, 02, great. And then this dialog box comes up. So not quite sure, but Kaleido DAE, it must use the FBX engine or something to export, or to set whatever it needs to set, because it's the export FBX dialog. So don't let that throw you off. You're not exporting FBX, it's really DAE. So what I do here generally is you just have to set it one time, but I set it to Autodesk Media and Entertainment, and then expand animation, and then bake animation, and then I resample. Come down here, axis conversion, we're going to be Z up, and that unit is going to do automatically. So that's about it. That's what you have to do here, and make sure your frames per second are the same as the way you set it up, and that is going to be awesome. I'll try to use a new word. Some material sitting in the dock. Okay, so that is unexpected. So I'm going to look and check that out. So I press M to bring up the material editor. You could also press that button. And then if I just come over here and click on this eyedropper tool, interesting. Yes, you can call me a liar, because I said changing the render will set that. Oh, you know what? I think I reset I did. I restarted the scene without blah, blah, blah. Okay, so good. All right, well, might as well look at this then, because this will happen. This is where that script comes in super, super handy. If we just take this and this material convert to standard, just drop it into the scene, and you will see now if I select this, press Control C just to select the children, now I have standard materials and not these Arch and Design materials anymore. So that's totally fine. And now I'm going to export this and hopefully not get any errors. Just overwrite that one. Yes, everything's the same. All right, good. So no errors. Apologize for that. All right, so now coming back into InfraWorks, and we're going to import this into InfraWorks. I am not an InfraWorks expert, and that's that becomes really apparent when I start talking about it. So I apologize if I don't call things by their proper names and or whatever. But I'm learning. All right. So now we're going to import this model in, and so I'm just going to in the that, and then data sources. Come over here and say 3D model. And I want, yeah, DAE, I want O2. And I'm going to set it to city furniture, and local origin is great because we put it at 0. Now I'm going to place it like there. Refresh. All right, and so obviously this needs to be rotated and some other things. So you're saying, hey Dave, this thing's just going to loop, and it's not going to be synced up to the rest of the animation because it's just going to do this thing over and over and over again. I'd say, yes, you're right, except there's a plan. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to have it do the loop, but obviously you could drag that animation out if you were to just right-click on this guy and just say, all right, I want this to be 1200 actually. Then export it. It's going to come out, and it's just going to stay up for a long time, and then when it loops again, it'll do it. So you want to sync the rest of your animation. So real quick here, 10:43, yeah. So we're probably coming up on it, Eric, where we're going to ask some questions, I imagine. So let me bring in the IfWorks one. IfWorks, merge. And this is obviously called next.
Yeah, Dave, we don't have a ton of questions, so you have the bulk of that.
Oh, okay.
15 minutes left if you want to use it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, sure will. All right, so I'm just going to bring in, and this is the crossing arm I brought in from InfraWorks. Obviously, the scale is somewhat different. If I come over here and check, it's 13 feet, but on the X, so the arm is actually much longer, which I think makes more sense than this. That's a bit gigantic. So I'm just going to right-click on that, and I'm going to hide it. So I have learned recently that there are some there's some oddities that happen when you bring in an InfraWorks model into Max. I've actually written a script that will fix that. I'll include that in the data set if you want to go ahead and try this out. But so you can see that right now we have 700 polygons as opposed to several thousand, 13,000, whatever it was. the texture looks a lot better. It's just a better model, and so this is going to be a lot better to work with. So if we come over here and I'll just start off by moving the pivot point down to 0, and make sure that it's fairly lined up there. All right, and then I'll move this to 0. Okay, so now we are on the origin point with this thing. So now we just need to do what we did before, which was just cut it up and cut out the pieces that we don't that we want to animate. So again, I select my element in the modify panel, and I'll switch over here to front view, hold Control, grab it. L for left, and this, and maybe that. I can grab it. Okay, that looks pretty good, and I'm just going to slide that out. All right, looks like we're missing some stuff here, and so I grabbed too much. And if you hold Alt, then you can deselect some stuff. So I wonder if the vertices can there. They're not acting like they're well, but anyway, so we do that, and then we got all of that pretty much handled, except for this inside piece, which I hold Control, and then I hold Alt.
Dave, when you get a chance, can you tell us how you got that model from InfraWorks into 3ds Max?
Yeah,
where it came from?
I just placed it in the InfraWorks model and then exported that model as FBX.
Gotcha.
And I placed it as a tree, so I only exported the trees, and then I brought that in.
Okay.
That way.
Thanks.
Yeah, so, sure. And so, yes, can be laborious, this part. All right, so now I got it all. I'm going to detach it and say arm again. Hold that, come over here to the hierarchy, and I can see pretty clearly here where that rotation point needs to be, right there. All right, and then A. That would be weird. Oh, dag. All right, so move that up. I moved the wrong one. Alright, awesome. Now, that's selected. It's good. I'm going to slide that one back down to 0. Alright. Now go ahead, select and move. What you don't want to do, and that's a great example, is you don't want to start rotating the pivot. You don't want to mess with the pivot from anything other than moving it to where you want it to be in general, unless you really know what you're doing. Because that's going to mess things up, and I don't want to talk about what it messes up, but it's going to make your life really hard. So, anyway, you saw the difference between the two. I brought in the InfraWorks model, didn't have to clean anything up. I just was able to separate this arm and the rotation. So actually, the only thing that's different is since this is starting out in the down position, when I turn on auto key and I have rotate and I have my angle snap on, I just want to set that for the first key to be right there, like that-ish, maybe in that department. It says first key, it doesn't matter. Anyway, you want that to be your starting point. Now, we can move it out by 20, make sure animation is on, by pressing N or selecting that key. And again, we're going to move it down, 90, turn that off, grab that key, slide that out to 360, like ish, and then grab that key, slide it out to 480. And you can see here, this is where I have a lot more frames, so it becomes a little bit more difficult to get those lined up right, but now it stays down, comes up. So if I were to grab that now, and since I have the other object in the scene, but it's hidden, even if I say File Export, it's going to export that with this. So that's not what we want. We just want to export selected on this one. And let's say that, and then add this little bit. Okay, same on all of this. Let's go ahead and make it the full 1200. Living dangerously, and say, all right. Okay, so you saw how the other one like sort of hesitated, and this one is automatic. Now, I'm pretty sure I already set the little fix you have to do when you bring in an InfraWorks model, but if I didn't, it's about to become very apparent. So if I double click this and go to 3D model, yes, so you can see that I have yet to do that. And so it's actually really strange, and I think it's a bug, and I'd be happy to, you know what, I'm just going to place it, and we're going to pretend that it's placing, and then so I don't know what that, oops, what did I do? Oh, I didn't hit that. Alright, so then rotate it around, and now it sort of sits until the time is up. Alright, so to fix this, this is where it's not necessarily the easy part, but when you are, yeah, perhaps that's what I should do. I don't even know. Eric, should I show this? It's really kind of advanced.
I think it's okay if we maybe skip that and save it for next time if you don't think you have the time to cover it. We do have a couple of questions, I wanted to get to and make sure we don't run out of time there.
Sure.
Is there anything you need to wrap up, or can we jump to those questions?
Yeah, no, we can jump to the questions. That's about it right now.
Okay.
So, yep.
A couple of times we had a question about, I think folks noticed that you're kind of eyeballing the placement of that pivot point on the model. Is there any way to snap that to a location like you do with AutoCAD?
Yeah, absolutely. So long as there is a point to snap it to, right? For this, you can see there really aren't any objects that you can snap that rotation to. As far as vertices or lines go, whatever, there are ways that you can do that. Not necessarily with this model, because as you can see, I don't have anything that I can grab onto. But if I assume with an AutoCAD model you would have that, and in that case, what you want to do is, I just come up here. If you right-click on your angle snaps, you're going to have the snaps tab here. Then you can pick, all right, I want the pivot point, the vertex, here are all your snap options. And then once you do that, so long as you have your snap on, then it's going to snap to that particular component, whatever you've chosen there.
Okay, so it would have worked on the other model because I think that had a circular object in that location.
Yeah, if it did, it certainly would have. Just see here. Yeah, right. So I could have gone center here, possibly. It depends on the model, but definitely with an AutoCAD model, you would have that, or a Revit model, you would have that option.
Okay. Another question very early on was about aerial images, so I don't know if you have an answer here, but the question is, when I've used 3ds Max with InfraWorks, I struggle in getting aerial imagery to transfer between models. What are my options? Have you had any experience with aerial imagery in 3ds Max and InfraWorks?
Not really, but what's the struggle? Like, what's the problem?
Well, that question came from Aaron, so maybe we'll get a little more information on that in the next few minutes.
Okay. Is it not lining up properly or not coming in at all?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
While we're waiting for maybe some additional information on that, one of the questions was about the file size of the DAE that you exported. Can you quickly take a look at that? Tell us what that is.
That's a great point, and I meant to bring that up. So let's. Oh, it must be in the other place. Okay. So let me just find that real fast here. File export selected, and we're at the other spot. So if I go there. Yeah, so 500K minus 2 meg, big difference.
Right. Okay. Aaron gave us some more information, basically that the imagery doesn't align. So going back to that aerial imagery question, the problem is that the imagery doesn't align.
Yeah. So alignment between Max, InfraWorks and some of our other software titles, we think we have an answer for that, but we're not. It's not been fully vetted yet, but I think that is an issue that we're going to need to address here pretty soon. Okay. So so sorry that's not an answer, but it's the best we got right now.
A couple more questions just came in. Why did you use convert to editable mesh rather than editable poly?
Because of the translation, and that's a good question. Sometimes it's poly, sometimes it's mesh, but when it comes in from Trimble, I'm not exactly sure what happens in the conversion from mesh to poly, but it sort of blows up the file size, creates vertices, detaches faces. You can't really see it, but it happens, and I just like to keep it editable mesh, as that is. Okay, I like to work in editable poly, don't get me wrong, but for Trimble models, I definitely try to keep it mesh as much as possible, only because I know what's going to happen. I know what to expect, and I don't want to throw another wrench in the works by converting it to a poly and then having it maybe undo some things that I have just done to clean it up. You know what I mean?
Yep. All right, and one more that came in that I'll actually answer. The question was, is the animation feature available in the basic version of InfraWorks? So I'm assuming that means InfraWorks 360 LT, and the answer is yes. If you bring in an animated object, like the examples here in InfraWorks 360 LT, you will see the animation work in that version of the software. So I'm showing, we've got about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to take back presenter mode just for a minute and wrap things up.
Awesome.
So I am doing that now. And I just wanted to remind everyone that our next webcast is on component roads. It's 2 weeks from today on Wednesday, November 18th from 12 to 1. Please watch all of our different community sources to get information and the link to register for that, and we hope to see you all at that webcast in about 2 weeks. I have to check the official numbers, but I think today we broke an attendance record for this webcast, so really happy about that. Great job, Dave, in coming up with a great topic that obviously a lot of folks found interesting, and we're looking forward to, we don't have a schedule yet, but we're looking forward to a couple more follow-up webcast to this one, where I think Dave's going to dig in a little deeper and take us on through the full package, the cars and the train part of the animation. So great job, Dave. And
thanks everybody.
Just want to say one final thank you, and we'll see you all out there in the community. Have a great day, everyone.